Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Safari Mack Explores North America, where I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're still here in Astoria, Oregon, just finishing up our time with the wolves of the sea, the killer whale, or as we know them to you and me as Orca. Today we're going to take a look at some of the incredible wild things about these creatures, find out the hard past that they've had with us, with encounters from us humans, and how we can all learn to coexist today and what we're doing to help protect these animals from extinction. But before we begin, as always, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out my Facebook page for not only extra content, but also special conservation tips and projects that you can practice in your own home. And finally, if there's an animal that you want me to do in the future, or if you have questions about animals, feel free to always send me an email, which you'll find my address down in the description below. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's talk about the wild. Let's talk about the wild things. Now, for starters, last week, if you all tuned in to my Safari Mack special on killer whale ecotypes, I explained to you that because these orcas live in different parts all over the world, as they are found in all the Earth's oceans and seas, they actually have different dialects and different ways of talking, similar to how maybe people down in the south might have a bit of that southern accent, or we may have that, or another accent from maybe somewhere in Europe or anywhere else in the world. Orcas also have different ways of talking. So they have low frequency pops, whistles, clicks, and other forms of communication that they're so distinct that, since we're talking about southern resident orcas, if they were trying to talk to transient or even offshore orcas, they wouldn't even be able to understand them. So talk about major differences. Here's another major incredible thing. You may recall last week that I told you that males and females are easy to determine who's who because of dorsal fin size, or because of how they appear. So female orcas have their dorsals a little shorter and have a bit of a curve. While, as you can see, this male, his dorsal fin is actually just standing all the way up. In fact, if it was from tip to the base, a male orca's dorsal fin measures at 6 feet in height. Can you imagine standing next to that behemoth? Another major, and you know what? It's a good thing that each orca's dorsal fin is different from others, as this helps scientists or biologists that are studying these animals identify exactly who's who within different pods all across the Pacific Ocean. Another major fun wild thing is their brain size. Orcas' brains are 5 times bigger than that of our own brains, yet it's the sperm whale that takes the crown in terms of brain size. And finally, here's an interesting wild thing that I bet you didn't even know about. How did they get the name killer whale if they're not really killing us? The Latin name of Orca actually comes from the meaning kingdom of the dead. So, a little dark, but for some reason, Orca, the name just stuck. Now, of course, we know that killer whales in the wild don't really kill humans much. Unfortunately, with what we've had in our past, it's a surprise that they haven't done it yet. But really, let's just be thankful that they haven't. Unfortunately, now we have to get into the dark side, the conflicts and challenges. So, historically, populations in the Northwest Pacific as well as in the Northern Atlantic, unfortunately, orcas were actually targeted for capture that would be later taken to marine parks such as SeaWorld and other marine parks all over the world. Now, southern resident orcas, unfortunately, were one of the heaviest of being targeted for marine capture. In fact, one famous orca that we may know of was an orca named Lolita, who sadly had passed away not too long ago due to old age, as the oldest orca known in people call it captivity. I prefer to use the term human care. So unfortunately, this is a very bit of a dark side. But there's unfortunately more. Because these animals were once seen as pests to fishermen and such, they were shot at to protect local catches. And even the military, a long time ago, once used these creatures as target practice. Now, thankfully, this all came to an end when the Marine Mammal Protection Act came into play. So today, we don't see any of that anymore. Unfortunately, they still face challenges from fishing, from lack of available food, to boat traffic, and marine pollution. So now, we're going to end today's episode by seeing the solutions by targeting the different problems that these animals are facing. So for starters, the world loves salmon. I myself also love salmon, though my personal favorite is sockeye salmon. Now, the reason that orcas are having a hard time is that, if you recall last week, I told you about how the Chinook salmon, or what we also call the king salmon, is for the southern resident orcas, it's almost 79 to 85% of their diet. They need those huge fish to be able to grow in population size and in pod strength. So what we need to do, we need to stop overfishing certain salmon species, and we need to really work at how we tend to eat seafood or harvest seafood, because our choices of what we eat greatly affect how they can survive. Another major problem. Now, whale watching is of course a popular pastime, and it really is a thrill to see these animals in their natural habitat. I myself would love to see orcas in the wild one day, but unfortunately, while the boats don't mean harm, unfortunately, the exhaust that they release, from the pollution that they release from their engines, it's been causing this species of orca respiratory problems. In fact, believe it or not, southern resident orcas are critically endangered, with only 74 of these animals left in their entire region. These guys need as much help as they can get to regrow their populations. In fact, sadly, despite the Marine Mammal Protection Act as well as the Endangered Species Act, these guys have not really had the greatest luck or the greatest success in regrowing their population. So we need to continue to show support for the Endangered Species Act, as well as keeping these animals safe. So the boat part, a way that we could help them, try not to go on those gigantic boats. And while I'm probably asking a lot more from everybody than anything else, I would personally like to do it by kayaking. Sure, it's a bit scary, but just imagine seeing these guys, these mammoth-sized creatures under your boat. In a way, you're sharing a powerful connection with these creatures, just like the Hyade of British Columbia do with these animals. Another major thing that you can do to save these animals: stop marine pollution, support beach cleanups. Even if you're living where orcas aren't, what you do by your behavior of keeping nature trash free, you're helping set an example for all people to do their part in keeping these animals safe for the future. And like I said, the Seafood Watch, I will include a link for you all down in the description below so that you can see what fish is safe and how you can change the way you're eating seafood to help these animals in the future. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me on an animal that I've wanted to do for a long time since we started Safari Mack. But I'm afraid, as of now, we need to say goodbye to the wolves of the sea and move on with the humpback whale, which I will do next week. But until then, this is Safari Mack, and I'll see you all out there.